Hey there, welcome to day 5 of the 5-day cooking challenge with the Autoimmune Free Cooking Club. I hope you're hanging in there. Day 5, it should be Friday. If you have watched many of my videos, you probably know that Friday night is pizza night in my house. If you look for pizza recipes on my website, you will find quite a few. I have just a great variety, and this is one of my favorites. What I'm going to do here is get my onion going first. I kind of got ahead of myself. I'm going to add I meant to grab my avocado oil, but I grabbed olive oil, so that's fine. Just a little bit of oil in the pan. And then I'm going to chop this onion, this sweet Vidalia onion. So what we're making tonight is pizza popover. I hope you know already because you've reviewed your recipe. And this one is like upside down pizza because the sauce is underneath and then the crust is on top. And this is something that my grandma made for me. Also, if you followed along for a little while, you probably have noticed that is another theme. We love pizza, and I love my grandma. And she really taught me, I think, to love cooking and taught me a lot of cooking skills. And so pizza popover was one of her, I'm sure it wasn't her invention, she probably got it out of a cookbook or a magazine, but I learned about it from her and have loved it ever since. And I can see that smoking. Had to make a paleo version of it. And so that is what we have here. So we're going to start in our skillet. That one onion, you could use just a half of an onion if you like. I just almost always use a full onion. This is another dish that is real easy to add extra vegetables to. I was looking for a spare zucchini or something and I didn't have one. All the zucchini I had earlier in the summer and I don't have a spare right now. So that's all right. We'll have a big salad on the side tonight. That's our dish. It's pizza popover and side salad. We are going to add a great big bunch of kale. So we'll sneak some veggies in here for sure. I always get veggies in. Okay, so there is my pound of grass-fed ground beef. Oops. This recipe is not complicated, but it is one that you want to be sure to read ahead of time because there are a couple different parts to it. And you just don't want to be blindsided. So make sure you read the whole thing ahead of time. So to make a little bit more, the original recipe was just a pound of ground beef, but I now add half a pound of sausage just to kind of bulk up the recipe. And like I said, normally I would add some extra veggies to that as well. So just get your meat broken up. I hope you've been having a good time. Maybe you're kind of tired because it's Friday. I hope that it has been worth it though. I hope you're feeling well. I hope you're getting, your dinners are getting rave reviews around the dinner table. It would be really ambitious if you did this, especially if you're not already in the habit of cooking Monday through Friday. But you certainly could have doubled any of these recipes and stashed something in the fridge or the freezer for later, hopefully making next week a little bit easier, or maybe the weekend. Maybe you just have a bunch of leftovers you can enjoy over the weekend. So I really sincerely hope that you are seeing the fruits of your labors this week. I feel like I've just turned this thing down instead of turning it up. Okay, so we're just breaking up the meat, getting that cooking with the onion, and then we're going to add all of our spices. So we need 1.5 teaspoons of sea salt. You can always add less. This is to my taste. And actually the sausage is a little spicy. Excuse me, a little salty. So I will hold back on that just a little. There goes our salt. And 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and I used hot sausage. So I'm going to use a little bit less pepper. And 2 teaspoons of dried oregano. Now, if you have some fresh out in your garden, go right ahead and use that. Usually with fresh, you want about twice as much as you would use dry. That's just about empty. And I just bought a new one, so I think I can save that. I've been making a lot of my own spice blends lately, and so I'm saving my glass bottles. A teaspoon and a half of dried basil. It's funny, the oregano I had written the dried first, and the basil I had written the fresh first, so I'm guessing I had fresh basil in my garden at that time. A teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. So the original recipe from Grandma used a packet of spaghetti sauce mix or seasoning. It is little red packets. So there's like a whole shelf of them at the grocery store. And it had, it tasted really, 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 really good. If you never had one of those. But it had MSG and some starches and different things in it. So I had to come up with my own version of that seasoning packet. But these are all basic spices that I'm sure you have in your cupboard. And if not, they're not expensive ones to purchase or difficult to find. So let me get these out of the way because I got so much. Let me give this a stir. So if you watched my live a couple weeks ago, I made the Paleo pizza bowls. This is really similar. That one had a ton of vegetables. You could absolutely sort of combine these recipes if you wanted. You could make the pizza bowls using the jarred pizza sauce. That made that recipe a little quicker. We're going to use tomato paste and some tomato sauce here. And then of course we've added all of our own spices. So with the pizza bowls, we got a lot of the spices from the sauce. But you could do that portion of that recipe and then just make the popover batter. You could make up your own recipe. Lots of ways to get all the pizza flavors and stick with the paleo diet. I know a lot of people in September are doing a Whole30. So this recipe as written has a little bit of honey in it. I didn't even get my honey out. I've been making it so much without that, you know, the honey is great, especially if you're used to having a little bit more sugar in your diet. It's a good way to keep a little bit of that sweetness, and it's a natural sweetener. But if you've been cooking without sweetener, maybe you've been following a low-carb diet for a while, you won't want that honey in there. Okay, I've got that one little piece of ground beef that is sort of frozen. Let me just check my recipe and see when I'm supposed to add my kale. Okay, it's going to come after this is all cooked and I get my tomato sauce in the pan. So I'll go ahead and clean and chop it. So you want about 2 cups. I said kale, but you could use Swiss chard, you could use spinach, you could use any other hearty green that you like. I just happened to buy a kale this week. I've been making smoothies again. I kind of go in and out of it. I really like to eat, so smoothies are not my favorite thing because I'd rather eat my meal than drink it. And my functional medicine doctor said smoothies just aren't the best because it helps your body to go through that process of chewing and digesting. However, I don't have a Vitamix. I have a much, much less expensive blender. So when I make a smoothie with a bunch of vegetables in it, I have to do some chewing anyway. So I think it's okay. But I have found that I'm so busy right now. I'm forgetting to eat, and then I get really hungry and I just want to grab something that I can eat at my desk real quickly. So I'll grab like some beef jerky or some nuts, something like that, that will tide me over and give me some energy that I need. But then I'm not getting the vegetables. So I'm just taking the time. Most days of the week I'm doing it right now. Making myself a green drink. It's not a juice. It's definitely a smoothie. There's this chunky. I like to put greens in it, and celery and cucumber, and then I'll do some green apple, maybe some frozen berries, some kind of little bit of fruit to give it some sweetness. But I love that the celery and cucumber and either kale or spinach with like lemon juice or lime juice and some kind of fruits. That's really good. I think it tastes really good. It's like, I made my husband taste it. I think I made the kids taste it too. No, they refused. I made one over the weekend. My husband's like, yeah, it tastes like drinking a salad. But I like salad. But you don't put the salad dressing in. That would be kind of weird. Alright, so we're cooking up here. I have my oven on 400. I have my 9x13 pan back here ready for me. I just sprayed it with a little avocado oil spray. You could just pour some oil in and just rub it around with your fingers or a paper towel. Either would be fine. So I want this to start to brown a little bit. Okay, while this is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and make my salad dressing. Now typically I will make my salad dressings on the weekend, but I just wanted to show you. I did make my mayonnaise over the weekend. I have the recipe on the website. I have videos showing you how to make it. It's very simple to make a homemade mayonnaise, and then you can do so many things with it. So I've got some mayonnaise in my bowl. I'm going to add some Dijon mustard. I'm making the creamy balsamic. But you can make all sorts of different dressings. If you can do like an oil and vinegar type dressing, or if you like the creamy dressings like a honey mustard or a Thousand Island, you can totally do that with your base of your homemade mayonnaise. So instead of honey, I'm going to use a few drops of liquid stevia just to keep the sugar down, because that's what's better for me. So depending on how tart or tangy you want your dressing, you can adjust your ratio of vinegar to oil. And now instead of oil, we're using the mayonnaise. The mayonnaise is our oil. It's just eggs and oil and a little bit of flavoring. So that's serving as the oil in our vinaigrette here. So it won't break because the mayonnaise is emulsified. So typically it would be like a 2-to-1. You would have 2 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. I like it a little more tangy than that, so I do a little bit more, but the recipe you'll see calls for 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. You'll notice I didn't measure because I'm just going to taste it to get it the way I want it, and an 1/8 to 1/4 cup of vinegar, so you can decide how tangy you like it. So just start with a lesser amount, taste it, and then add more if you want more. Okay, so I'm going to taste it. I think it's perfect. I got it just right. Okay, so I'm just going to cover this and stick it in the fridge because it's mayonnaise. I don't want to leave it out while I do the rest of my cooking. Okay, 15-ounce can of tomato sauce. You'll notice I have crushed tomatoes. And you could use diced tomatoes, whatever. Don't use tomato juice. And if you buy like the whole plum tomatoes, you're going to need to chop those up. But any sort of tomato sauce, crushed tomatoes will be fine. So just go ahead and pour that in. And then I need 1/2 cup of water. So I use the water to rinse my can, so I don't lose all that good tomato sauce just to the recycle bin, you know, or down the drain. Just kind of give that a swirl. There we go. Stir that in. This is where you would add the honey if you were going to add honey. And you know what, I'm going to taste it because some tomatoes are very acidic and others are not as much so. And so if it's super duper acidic, I will add a teeny little squirt of honey. Forgot what I was saying. You could use maple syrup, but in this particular application I wouldn't really want the maple flavor. So I would use a different sweetener. And then in goes my kale. Again, it was supposed to be 2 cups. I might have a little bit more than 2 cups. That's okay. So at this point, we want this sauce to simmer for about 10 minutes. Is that right? Let's see. 12 minutes. Just letting the flavors come together. You really could absolutely skip this simmering step if you wanted to. It deepens the flavor, gives you a chance to taste, but you could skip it if you want. I'm going to stir it in, and I'm going to let it simmer while I shred my cheese. So this is one of those that I have included some cheese in the recipe in the shopping list. You absolutely do not have to use it. Trust me, there's so much flavor here. You don't have to have the cheese. And I often will use the cheese on the family portion, and then for mine, I don't put any cheese on. And the only trick with this particular recipe is you have to remember which side of the pan has the cheese and which side doesn't, because it'll be covered up with the popover batter. So I had a partial package here of mozzarella. You could buy sliced mozzarella if you want. That was actually Grandma's original recipe. I don't know if you can even buy sliced mozzarella anymore. Look at how that's grating in such a funny way. Just kind of rip up the rest of that. Kind of shred it by hand. So if you're following a low FODMAP diet and you need to not have, you can have cheese, but you need to have more of an aged cheese. Monterey Jack has a very similar texture to mozzarella. It's a kind of cheddar, and so it has a little bit of a deeper flavor. I happen to really prefer it. I just happen to not have any, or I would have used it tonight. And it is, because it's a cheddar, it's more aged. So with the low FODMAP diet, you don't want the fresh cheeses, but if you tolerate them, the aged cheeses are more acceptable for that diet. So that's something to consider if you're working on SIBO, something like that. All right, and then this is a little Parmesan, just because that was a partial package. So I have given you the proper recipe, and I've given you the proper shopping list, but I'm guessing that most of you didn't start with a completely empty cupboard. You probably had stuff in your cupboard and in your fridge and maybe in your freezer, like me. Maybe you're trying to use some things up. All right, so I'm going to give this a taste. And then I'll tell you what's next. It tastes really good. Oh, I have one special ingredient I'm going to add. So I have this little bit of pepperoni left from the Paleo pizza bowls, and it's going to go bad. So it's fresh. Well, not fresh. I mean, it's still pepperoni, but it's from the deli, so it is. It won't hold as long as the kind that's like in the little sealed packages. Okay, so at this point, we're going to pour into your prepared pan. And just spread this out. And then on goes the cheese. Nope, I'm lying. If you're going to use pepperoni, the pepperoni goes first. This person had a hard time slicing. There are lots of little half slices there. It just adds to that pizza flavor. Okay, so try to distribute the Parmesan. Oh, I was only going to put cheese on half. I forgot. Oh well, it's fine. Cheese doesn't really bother me, honestly. I feel like I feel maybe a little bit better when I don't eat cheese or dairy, but a little bit every now and then does not bother me. Okay, so this is going in my hot oven, my 400-degree oven, for 10 minutes. Okay, so for the popover part, I know I'm making a lot of noise. So while that tomato, the sauce, the meat mixture is baking, we're going to make our popover batter, which goes in this bowl right here. And we're going to combine our 2 eggs that we're trying to get away. They're just 2 large eggs. Look how pretty the yolks are right now. Coconut milk, or you could use almond milk, but I have the milk left over from when I took the cream from the top for the beef stroganoff. So we're going to use that. I planned it that way so they would work together. See how clever I am? So the cream of mushroom soup took a whole can of coconut milk, and the stroganoff and the pizza popover are sharing the other can. Alright, so 2 eggs, the cup of coconut milk, a tablespoon of olive oil. That's why I had olive oil instead of avocado. And then it should be a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a cup of almond flour. So the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup. Half a cup goes in the batter and 1/4 of a cup goes on top. So in Grandma's recipe, you put Parmesan cheese on top, and that kind of helps make it, makes these little mountains. And so to make it a paleo version, we just sprinkle almond flour on top. So since like my family can use cheese, I could put the Parmesan cheese on top. But I'm just going to show you the paleo way with the almond flour on top. Was that clear as mud? Okay, so this is the popover batter. It'll have some little lumps in it. That's totally fine. You'll just give it another whisk before you put it on. And we need the arrowroot. I forgot the arrowroot, which is a half a cup. So it's a half a cup of almond flour and a half a cup of arrowroot. I'll use my tail of my measuring spoon. Okay, so this meal takes a little bit longer. You've got to prepare the sauce, and then it has to bake for a little while. And then once you put the popover batter on, it bakes even longer. Okay, so this one definitely is the longest prep of all of the meals. But hopefully Friday night is a little more relaxed for you, and it won't be stressful to make it. If you need to switch your nights, you could switch your nights. I know I had a rubber band on this. Alright, so that's it for now. I'm going to clean up just a little bit while I wait for that to come out of the oven, and then I'll start working on my salad. Okay, we really just need this in the oven long enough for the cheese to melt and for the filling to be really hot so that we get the popover effect that we're looking for. And it was boiling, it was practically boiling when we put it in, and the cheese has melted. And so I'm going to pour this batter over the top. One time I was experimenting with something different, and I didn't get the batter cooked all the way through, and my daughter got like a little raw bit in her bite, and she's been grossed out by this dish ever since. And it was one time, and it was a long time ago, and she's never forgiven me for it. Okay, so we're just sprinkling the almond flour over the top. Remember, if you handle cheese well, you could do finely grated Parmesan here instead. It needs to be a real fine, sort of powdery kind. You could sprinkle some Italian seasoning or something on top to make it pretty, but I'm not going to do that today. All right, then back in the oven this goes for 30 minutes. And we're just going to make a salad. So my kids love this butter lettuce. Actually, we all really like it. It just has a nice flavor. So I'm going to dump the whole bag in there. Do your kids say, do I have to eat this? Do I have to eat this? Like there will be one like red leaf in here. Do I have to eat the red leaf? Yes? Why would you not eat the red leaf? That's like the prize. You got the red leaf. Woohoo! Eat the red leaf. Okay, so that was just a handful of spinach. I'm intentionally making a lot. This is more than my family of four will eat tonight. However, if I make extra, then it's already chopped up for me tomorrow to have a nice salad for my lunch. Okay, so cucumber. My daughter took some cucumber in her lunch today and did not cover this up properly. Kids, right? They're gonna leave the house someday. They're gonna have to fend for themselves. My goal is to teach them to do it well. I love these English cucumbers or seedless cucumbers. They have different names. They don't have to be peeled. A lot of times cucumbers actually kind of give me heartburn, I guess. But the English cucumbers do not. So, I love those. And then, even though I have cherry tomatoes outside, I don't have that many. So, I bought some from the store. Did you know, here, let me wash these. Did you know that you can cut tomatoes much more easily with a serrated knife? Even, you know, the chef's knife that's really sharp, a serrated knife is going to cut through that skin a lot easier. Sometimes I'll toast some walnuts or something to go on the salad. I love something crunchy on my salad. But we have the pizza popover that has the almonds in the crust, the almond flour, and so I'm just not going to bother. I have this beautiful, just real fast veggie salad. You obviously add whatever you want to your salad. We already talked about the dressing. Our creamy balsamic is in the fridge just waiting. And I feel like that light is right on my face. So I will show you the pizza popover as soon as it comes out of the oven. Okay, so here's the pizza popover out of the oven. I hope you can see, it's probably not showing up on camera very well, but we have some little ridges. So in Grandma's version with the wheat flour and the Parmesan cheese on top, it really makes these big high mountains, and it's real pretty and cool looking when it first comes out of the oven, and then they kind of deflate. With the Paleo version, I don't know why sometimes we get bigger mountains and sometimes they're smaller. Sometimes it's completely flat. I really can't figure out why that is. Maybe it has to do with how I beat up the eggs or something. I'm not sure. But it doesn't really matter. I don't want to be fussy about it. It just tastes good. It's dinner. Okay, so it's basically upside down pizza. I'm going to just cut a piece and show you. So it's nice and like crusty on top, just like a pizza crust should be. Then I'll go and just scoop up that little bit of filling. So here we have our pizza popover. Day 5, you have made it to the end. Maybe you'll even have leftovers for the weekend and you can kick your feet up and not have to cook for a couple days. And we'll do a little recap video, but don't forget to post your pictures of your dinner. Remember, a prize for the prettiest and the ugliest. And let's just cheer each other on, because what an accomplishment to cook from scratch, following a diet that is healing your body for 5 days in a row, when I know you've got work and school and homework and kids activities, and probably you have some meetings in the evening. So this has been quite an accomplishment, and I applaud you. You should applaud yourself. All right, everybody, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.